Captain Lee Do-yun stood in the observation deck of Kepler Station, watching the alien delegates prepare for what they called the military assessment. The three species of the Galactic Council had traveled far to see what humans could do in battle. Lee found it strange that they wanted such a formal demonstration, but orders were orders. "Are you ready, Captain?" Ambassador Choi Min-seo asked as she joined him at the window. Below them, the training ground stretched out like a small city, complete with buildings, streets, and obstacles. "Yes, ma'am. Private Kim and Corporal Park are good soldiers. They'll show our guests what they want to see," Lee replied, adjusting his uniform. The aliens were an interesting group. The Vorthak looked like tall gray creatures with 4 arms and large heads. They moved slowly but seemed to think about everything carefully. High Counselor Vextar had explained that his people believed in planning every detail before acting. The Kalani were different. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in thick, scale-like skin. War leader Jos had proudly told them that his people were born warriors, trained from childhood to fight with honor and strength. The Nexari were the strangest of all. They looked almost like machines, with metal parts mixed into their bodies. Their representative spoke in a flat, emotionless voice and claimed their technology made them the best fighters in the galaxy. "Begin the demonstration," Vextar announced through the communication system. Down in the training area, Private Kim Haeon and Corporal Park Jiho moved into position. They carried standard Earth military equipment. Nothing fancy, just the basic gear that every soldier used. Kim held her rifle ready while Park checked his engineering tools. The scenario was simple. Clear a hostile area, disable enemy positions, and secure the target building. It was the kind of exercise that human soldiers did hundreds of times during training. Kim moved forward, keeping low and using the buildings for cover. She spotted the first simulated enemy position and quickly found a way around it. Instead of charging straight ahead like the aliens expected, she took a longer route that kept her hidden. "Interesting," Vextar muttered, watching Kim's movements. "She does not follow the most direct path." "Cowardly," War Leader Zos growled. "A true warrior faces the enemy head-on." Kim reached the enemy position from the side and eliminated the targets with quick, precise shots. Then she immediately moved to a new position, knowing that staying in one place too long was dangerous. Meanwhile, Park had found a different problem. The target building had defenses that blocked the main entrance. Most alien soldiers would have called for heavy weapons or waited for orders. Park did neither. He looked around the area and found some old pipes and electrical equipment. Within minutes, he had built a small explosive device using materials that were lying around. The aliens watched in shock as he blew a hole in the building's wall. "That is not standard equipment," the Nexari representative said, its mechanical voice showing confusion. "How did he create an explosive device?" "Basic field engineering," Lee explained. "All our soldiers learn to use whatever they find." The demonstration continued. Kim and Park worked together without talking much, seeming to know what the other was thinking. When Kim ran low on ammunition, Park provided cover. When Park needed time to set up another explosive, Kim drew the enemy's attention away from him. They adapted to each new challenge without stopping to make detailed plans. When the original route became blocked, they found another way. When their equipment broke, they fixed it or found substitutes. When the enemy changed tactics, they changed too. The aliens grew more uncomfortable as they watched. Their own soldiers were trained for specific roles and followed careful plans. These humans seemed to make everything up as they went along, yet they were incredibly effective. "How long have these soldiers been training together?" Vextar asked. "They met yesterday," Lee answered honestly. "We picked them randomly from different units." War Leader Zos stood up suddenly. "Impossible. No warriors can coordinate so well without years of training together." But it was true. Kim and Park had never worked as a team before, but they fought like they had been partners for years. They understood how humans thought and moved, so they could predict what the other would do. The final part of the demonstration was close combat. The aliens expected this to be where humans would struggle, since they were smaller than most warrior species. They were wrong. Kim moved through the hand-to-hand combat course like a dancer, using speed and intelligence instead of raw strength. She turned the enemy's size against them, making them stumble and fall. She used the environment as a weapon, throwing dirt in their eyes and using walls to avoid attacks. Park fought differently, but just as effectively. He was stronger than Kim and fought with brutal efficiency, Every move had a purpose, every strike hit exactly where it would cause the most damage. There was no wasted motion, no dramatic poses, just practical violence. When the demonstration ended, the training ground was quiet. Kim and Park stood ready for the next order, breathing hard but not exhausted. To them, this had been a normal exercise. The aliens looked at each other in confusion and concern. What they had witnessed went against everything they thought they knew about warfare. These soldiers, Vextar finally said, they fought with remarkable skill and coordination. Thank you, Lee replied. Kim and Park are good representatives of our military. Representatives? The Nixari asked. You mean there are more like them? Of course. They're regular army soldiers. We have millions like them. The silence that followed was long and uncomfortable. The aliens had expected to see Earth's best warriors, their elite forces showing off advanced tactics and superior equipment. Instead, they had watched two ordinary soldiers doing ordinary things. Things that had terrified three of the galaxy's major military powers. Captain, War Leader Joss asked slowly, what you have shown us today, these are your regular forces? Lee nodded, still not understanding why the question seemed so important. Yes, sir. Standard infantry soldiers, basic equipment, routine training exercise. The aliens looked at each other again. If these were regular forces, what were Earth's special forces like? What happened when humans actually tried to be impressive? Ambassador Choi noticed the worried expressions on the alien faces, but did not understand the cause. The demonstration had gone perfectly. The soldiers had performed exactly as expected. I hope this has been helpful for your assessment, she said politely. High Counselor Vextar stood slowly, his forearms trembling slightly. Yes, Ambassador, very enlightening. We will need to discuss what we have learned. As the aliens filed out of the observation deck, Lee and Choi exchanged glances. They had no idea that they had just changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. 3 weeks after the demonstration on Kepler Station, Colonel Yoon Tae-wan received orders that puzzled him. The Galactic Council wanted a much larger display of human military capabilities. They requested a full battalion for joint exercises, with their own forces on Titan 7, one of the moons in the outer system. They want to see how we work with their troops, Yoon explained to his officers as they prepared for departure. This is a big opportunity to build trust with our new allies. Lieutenant Jang Yoonji studied the mission briefings while Sergeant Kang Woobin checked equipment lists. Specialist Onara worked on communication protocols, trying to figure out how to coordinate with alien technology. Sir, their tactical systems seem very different from ours, O reported. The Vorthak plan everything in advance and don't like changes. The Kalani focus on individual combat strength. The Nexari use computer calculations for every decision. We'll adapt, Yoon said simply. That's what soldiers do. The trip to Titan 7 took several days. During the journey, the human battalion studied what little information they had about alien military methods. Most of it confused them. Why would anyone plan a battle completely before it started? How could you fight effectively if you never changed tactics? Why would you let computers make decisions that soldiers should make? Titan 7 was a cold, rocky world with thin atmosphere and rough terrain. The aliens had built a large training facility there, complete with different environments for testing various combat scenarios. High Marshal Thon of the Kalani greeted the humans when they arrived. He was even larger than War Leader Joss, covered in battle scars that he wore like medals. Behind him stood representatives from the other species, including the strange machine-like Nexari unit called Delta 9. Human warriors, Thon said in his deep voice. We are honored to test our strength against yours. Colonel Yoon returned the greeting politely, though he wondered why the alien seemed so serious about what should be routine training exercises. The first exercise was urban warfare in a mock city. Each species would take turns attacking and defending different sectors. The Kalani went first, charging through the streets with impressive courage and strength. They fought like heroes from ancient stories, each warrior trying to prove their individual worth. The Vorthak came next, moving slowly but methodically. Every action had been planned in advance. They knew exactly where each soldier would go and what they would do. It was like watching a complex dance where everyone knew their steps perfectly. The Nexari were different again. Their movements seemed almost robotic, but they were incredibly precise. Computer calculations told them the best place to aim, the optimal route to take, and the exact moment to attack. They made no mistakes, because their machines had eliminated the possibility of error. Then came the humans' turn. Lieutenant Zhang divided her platoon into small teams and sent them into the city without detailed plans. "Adapt to what you find," she told them. "Use your judgment." The aliens watched in growing confusion as the human soldiers seemed to ignore all military doctrine. Instead of following predetermined routes, they improvised new paths when they met resistance. Instead of sticking to assigned roles, they switched jobs as needed. Instead of waiting for orders, they made decisions on their own. Sergeant Kang's squad encountered a heavily defended position that should have stopped their advance. Instead of calling for support or retreating to replan, they found a building maintenance tunnel that let them attack from an unexpected direction. The defensive position fell in minutes. "How did they know about that tunnel?" asked the Vorthak observer. "It was not in the building plans we provided." "They didn't know," Colonel Yoon explained. "Kang sent someone to look for alternative routes while the others kept the enemy busy." "But that was not part of the plan," the Vorthak insisted. "We don't plan everything in advance. We adapt to the situation." This concept seemed to terrify the aliens. Their military thinking was based on specialists doing specific jobs according to careful plans. The idea of soldiers making independent decisions and changing roles as needed was completely foreign to them. The exercises continued for several days. Each new scenario revealed more about how differently humans approached warfare. When their equipment broke, they repaired it or improvised replacements. When communication failed, they continued fighting effectively without orders. When the enemy used unexpected tactics, they quickly developed counters. The most disturbing moment for the aliens came during hand-to-hand combat training. The Kalani were confident that their size and strength would give them easy victories over the smaller humans. War leader Thon himself volunteered to demonstrate proper combat techniques. Sergeant Kang stepped forward to face him. Thon stood nearly 3 feet taller and probably weighed twice as much. The Kalani leader expected a quick, honorable victory that would show his people's superiority. The fight lasted less than 30 seconds. Kang used techniques that the aliens had never seen before. Moves designed to hurt rather than impress. Attacks that targeted weak points instead of testing strength. When Thon tried to grab him, Kang broke the alien's finger. When Thon swung his massive fist, Kang ducked and struck at his knee. The Kalani warrior fell, injured and confused. This was not how combat was supposed to work. Where was the honor? Where was the test of strength? The human had fought like he was trying to kill, not prove his worth. "Your soldier fights without honor," Thon complained as medics helped him stand. "My soldier fights to win," Colonel Yoon replied. "Honor doesn't stop bullets or knives." The aliens held emergency meetings each night, trying to understand what they were seeing. The humans seemed to treat warfare as a practical problem to be solved, not a glorious contest to be won with style. They were willing to fight dirty, take risks, and sacrifice equipment or even themselves to achieve victory. Most frightening of all, they were very good at it. Nexeri Delta 9 ran constant calculations trying to predict human behavior, but the results never made sense. Humans acted in ways that were statistically improbable, but tactically effective. They took risks that should have failed, but somehow succeeded. "Their unpredictability is their greatest weapon," Delta 9 reported to its commanders. "Our strategic algorithms cannot account for decisions that appear irrational, but produce positive outcomes." Vorthak's strategic cast Morden was equally disturbed. "They change their plans constantly. How can they coordinate when no one knows what anyone else will do?" The answer became clear during the final exercise. A complex battle scenario involving all 4 species fighting together against a simulated enemy. The aliens had spent hours developing detailed coordination plans, assigning specific roles to each unit, and creating backup procedures for various contingencies. The humans listened politely to the briefing, then proceeded to ignore most of it. When the battle began, the human soldiers communicated with simple hand signals and basic radio calls. They seemed to understand each other without detailed explanations. When the alien forces got confused or fell behind schedule, the humans adjusted their own actions to compensate. Specialist O managed to interface her equipment with the alien communication systems and began translating orders in real time. This wasn't part of her assigned job, but she saw that it was needed and acted. Lieutenant Zhang noticed that the Kalani warriors were becoming isolated because they charged ahead of the other forces. Instead of sticking to her own objectives, she moved her platoon to support them, keeping the battle line intact. The exercise ended with complete victory for the combined force. The aliens had performed well within their specialized roles, but the humans had somehow made the whole team work together effectively. As they prepared to leave Titan 7, Colonel Yoon noticed that the alien representatives seemed nervous rather than pleased with the successful exercises. "Is something wrong?" he asked High Marshal Thon. "I thought the training went well, Eo." Kalani leader looked at him with something that might have been fear. "Colonel, what we have seen here, these are truly your regular army forces?" "Yes, of course, standard infantry battalion, nothing special." Thon exchanged glances with the other alien commanders. If this was what humans called regular army, what were their elite forces capable of? The emergency session of the Galactic Council took place in the ancient chambers of Nexus Prime, the neutral world where all major decisions were made. For the first time in centuries, the three major military powers had called for urgent discussions about a single species. Dr. Shin Kyung-min sat in the human observation area, taking notes on alien behavior patterns. As Earth's leading expert on alien psychology, she had been brought to help understand why the Council seemed so disturbed by routine military exercises. General Bei Sunwoo sat beside her, still confused by the aliens' reactions. "I don't understand what has them so worried," he whispered. "We showed them basic training exercises with regular soldiers. That might be exactly the problem," Dr. Shin replied, watching the alien delegates take their positions. Counselor Vorthak Prime Zephar called the session to order. His forearms moved in complex patterns as he spoke, a sign of extreme stress in his species. "Fellow council members, we gather to discuss the human military situation that has come to our attention." Supreme Warcast Kalani Rex Prime stood next. Even larger than the other Kalani they had met, his presence dominated the chamber. Battle scars covered his scaled hide like metals, and his voice carried the authority of countless victories. "What we witnessed on Titan 7 challenges everything we know about warfare," he declared. "These humans fight in ways that our military doctrine cannot explain or counter." The Nixari collective mind Epsilon spoke through multiple mechanical voices at once, creating an eerie harmony. "Our combat algorithms have analyzed thousands of hours of human military footage. The data reveals patterns that should not be possible. Neutral Arbiter Qualon 7, an ancient being whose species had overseen galactic peace for millennia, listened without comment. His role was to maintain order during discussions, but even he seemed disturbed by what the reports contained. Zephar activated a holographic display showing combat footage from the human exercises. The images showed Private Kim and Corporal Park during their demonstration on Kepler Station. "Observe their coordination," Zephar pointed out. These two soldiers had never worked together before, yet they function as a single unit. Among our people, such coordination requires years of training and constant practice. The footage switched to Sergeant Kang's squad on Titan 7. "Watch how they adapt to unexpected situations. When their original plan fails, they immediately create new solutions. They do not request new orders or wait for guidance. Each soldier thinks independently while maintaining group coordination." Warcast Prime growled as he watched Kang defeat the much larger Kelani warrior. "Our fighters train from childhood to perfect their combat skills. This human learned his techniques in a few years of military service, yet he defeated one of our experienced warriors easily. The methods he used were," Zephar searched for the right word, "practical, efficient, designed purely to disable the opponent rather than demonstrate skill or honor." Collective Mind Epsilon projected new calculations into the holographic display. Analysis of human combat efficiency reveals disturbing trends. Their soldiers operate at 347% above predicted capability for their training level. They achieve tactical objectives with 89% fewer resources than equivalent alien forces would require. Dr. Shin leaned forward, fascinated by the alien's perspective. She was beginning to understand their fear. The most troubling aspect, Epsilon continued, is their apparent comfort with violence. Our species have evolved beyond the need for constant warfare. We fight when necessary, but it is not our natural state. Humans seem to consider combat a normal part of existence. General Bay frowned at this comment. Combat isn't normal for us either. These are professional soldiers trained for military service. But Dr. Shin was studying historical data on her tablet. General, I think I see the problem. Every human culture in history has included warfare. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years before we ever met aliens. The implications hit both humans at the same time. While the alien species had developed advanced civilizations with specialized military castes, humans had evolved as warriors. Every human carried the genetic and cultural legacy of countless generations of fighters. Counselor Zephar was explaining this same realization to the assembly. Preliminary studies of human history reveal a species that has been in constant military conflict for its entire recorded existence. They have not developed specialized warrior castes because their entire population consists of potential warriors. Warcast Prime paced the chamber floor, his heavy footsteps echoing. Among the Kalani, 1 in 1,000 is born with the warrior spirit. We identify them early and train them for combat. The rest of our people live peaceful lives, supporting the warriors but never fighting themselves. The Vorthok military comprises less than 2% of our population, Zephar added. These are individuals specifically selected and trained for strategic thinking and military planning. The majority of our people have never seen combat. Collective Mind Epsilon's mechanical voices hummed with calculation. Nexari combat units are purpose-built artificial intelligences designed specifically for warfare. We do not use biological entities in military roles because they lack the necessary precision and logical thinking. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. Each alien species had small specialized military forces supported by peaceful civilian populations. Humans appeared to be an entire species of potential soldiers. Dr. Shin requested permission to address the council. Honored delegates, I believe there has been a misunderstanding about human military capabilities. She activated her own holographic display, showing comparative data. What you observed were indeed regular Army soldiers performing routine training exercises. However, human military doctrine is based on the assumption that every soldier might need to fight independently without support. The display showed human military training programs. We teach all soldiers to think tactically, adapt to changing situations, and operate multiple types of equipment. This is not because they are elite warriors, but because our history taught us that battles are unpredictable. General Bay stood to support her explanation. Our military philosophy is based on flexibility and individual initiative because we learned that rigid plans often fail in real combat. We train every soldier to make decisions because we cannot predict what situations they will face. Counselor Zephar's arms moved in patterns of deep concern. You are saying that all human soldiers are trained to the level that we reserve for our most elite forces? No, Dr. Shin replied, then paused as she realized the true scope of the misunderstanding. We train them to a basic level that allows them to function independently. Our elite forces train far beyond what you observed. The silence that followed was complete and terrifying. Warcast Prime was the first to speak. If what we saw were basic soldiers, what are your elite forces capable of? General Bay and Dr. Shin exchanged glances. They had not mentioned special forces, Marine units, or any of the truly specialized military groups that Earth maintained. The aliens were frightened by regular infantry soldiers. Perhaps, Dr. Shin said carefully, we should focus on integration procedures for our regular forces first. There is no need to discuss specialized units at this time, but the damage was done. The Council now knew that humanity possessed military capabilities far beyond what they had witnessed. The question was no longer whether humans were dangerous, but how dangerous they might be. Neutral Arbiter Quallen 7 finally spoke, his ancient voice carrying the weight of millennia. The Council will need time to consider these revelations. We suggest that all military integration discussions be postponed until we can better understand the implications. As the session ended, Dr. Shin noticed that none of the aliens seemed eager to continue their military cooperation programs. The humans had wanted to show transparency and build trust. Instead, they had accidentally revealed that their entire species might be more militarily capable than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The question now was whether this would lead to acceptance or isolation. The emergency transmission reached Earth 3 months after the Council deliberations. The message was brief but desperate. The Ravak horde had broken through Nexari defenses and was advancing toward Council territory. Despite their fears about human military capabilities, the aliens needed help. Major Lim Seo-hyun received her orders while training with her special operations team in the mountains of Korea. The mission briefing was unlike anything she had seen before. Earth was sending a small unit to assist in an actual galactic conflict. We're not going as representatives this time, she explained to her team as they prepared for departure. The aliens are in real trouble. Something called the Ravak horde is destroying everything in its path. Captain Han Ji-soo checked his equipment one final time. As a naval special warfare operator, he was used to impossible missions. But fighting alien enemies in space was new even for him. What do we know about these Ravak? Lieutenant Yu Donghae consulted the intelligence files. Large, aggressive species. They've been expanding into Council territory for months. The Nexari tried to stop them with computer-calculated strategies. But the Ravak don't follow predictable patterns. Sergeant Nam Hyejin, their reconnaissance specialist, studied stellar maps of the conflict zone. The battle lines keep changing. It looks like the Ravak adapt quickly to whatever tactics the Council uses. Master Sergeant Ryu Sango was more interested in the enemy's technology. As their demolitions expert, he needed to understand what he would be working with. Their ships and weapons seemed to be built for destruction rather than precision. Quantity over quality. The journey to the conflict zone took 2 weeks aboard a fast courier ship. During the trip, the team studied everything available about their alien allies and enemies. The Nexari had provided detailed technical specifications but seemed frustrated that their logical approach was failing against the chaotic Ravak. When they arrived at the forward command station, Major Lim was surprised to find Nexari Observer Unit Gamma waiting for them. The mechanical being had been assigned to monitor what the aliens called Human Special Forces operations. We are curious to observe your specialized combat methods, Gamma explained in its flat, emotionless voice. Our calculations suggest that irregular warfare might be more effective against the Ravak than conventional tactics. The situation was worse than the reports had indicated. The Ravak had captured 3 star systems and were pushing toward a major Nexari colony world. Their war chieftain, Graktos, seemed to enjoy destruction for its own sake rather than strategic conquest. They don't behave rationally, the Nexari commander complained during the briefing. Our predictions assume logical decision-making, but the Ravak act on emotion and instinct. Major Lim studied the tactical displays and immediately saw the problem. The Council was fighting the Ravak like they were another civilized species with understandable goals. But these enemies were more like a force of nature, destructive, unpredictable, and relentless. We need to get behind their lines, she told her team. Study their patterns, find their weaknesses, and hit them where they don't expect it. The aliens were confused by this approach. How could 5 humans accomplish anything that entire fleets had failed to do? But they were desperate enough to try anything. Captain Han and Lieutenant Yu infiltrated the captured territory using a small stealth ship. Their mission was to gather intelligence on Ravak operations and identify high-value targets. What they found was both fascinating and terrifying. The Ravak were indeed chaotic and destructive, but they had their own kind of organization. War Chieftain Graktos ruled through strength and fear, but he was also cunning enough to keep his forces focused on their goals. They're not mindless destroyers, Han reported back. They're predators. They understand pack tactics and territorial behavior. This insight changed everything. Instead of trying to fight the Ravak like a traditional army, the humans could treat them like dangerous animals that needed to be outsmarted rather than outfought. Sergeant Nam began a series of reconnaissance missions that amazed the Nexari observers. She moved through Ravak territory like a ghost, gathering information about their supply lines, communication methods, and leadership structure. The aliens had been trying to understand the Ravak through mathematical analysis. Nam learned about them by watching their behavior. They communicate through scent markers and territorial displays, she reported. Their command structure is based on dominance rather than formal rank. If we can eliminate the right leaders, Their forces will fight each other instead of us. Master Sergeant Ryu focused on their technology and infrastructure. The Ravak built things quickly and roughly, prioritizing speed over durability. This made them vulnerable to sabotage techniques that more advanced enemies might resist. Their power systems are overcomplicated but poorly protected, he observed. A few small explosives in the right places could disable entire installations. Observer Unit Gamma watched these preparations with growing fascination. Your methods appear random and inefficient, yet they produce significant intelligence-gathering results. How do you determine optimal reconnaissance routes without computational analysis? Experience and intuition, Major Lim explained. We look for patterns that make sense to us as predators rather than as mathematicians. The first operation began 3 days later. While Nexari forces engaged the Ravak in a conventional battle, the human team struck at targets deep behind enemy lines. They moved at night using terrain and weather to stay hidden from Ravak sensors. Their first target was a supply depot that supported Ravak operations across an entire sector. Instead of attacking directly, Ryu planted explosives that would detonate hours later, creating confusion about when and how the sabotage had occurred. The second target was a communication relay that coordinated Ravak fleet movements. Nam had discovered that the aliens used a simple but effective system of signal repeaters. Destroying the right relay would leave entire groups of Ravak ships unable to coordinate their attacks. The third target was more ambitious. War Chieftain, Graktos himself. Han and Yu had located the enemy leader's command ship, a massive vessel that served as both military headquarters and personal territory. The ship was heavily defended and surrounded by the most loyal Ravak warriors. Getting inside required skills that no alien military doctrine had ever considered. The humans didn't try to fight through the defenses or sneak past the guards. Instead, they studied Ravak behavior until they found a way to be invited in. Using captured Ravak equipment and uniforms, they posed as successful raiders returning with prisoners. The disguise worked because they understood how the Ravak thought. Warriors bringing captives to their leader would be welcomed and celebrated. Once inside the command ship, they moved through the corridors like they belonged there. Ravak security was designed to keep enemies out, not to monitor individuals who had already gained access. They found Graktos in his command chamber, planning the next assault on Nexari territory. The war chieftain was huge even by Ravak standards, covered in scars and trophies from countless battles. The assassination was quick and silent. One moment Graktos was studying battle plans, the next he was dead. His bodyguards never saw the humans enter or leave, but killing the leader was only part of the plan. Han had studied Ravak's social structure enough to know that Graktos' death would cause a succession struggle. Multiple subordinates would fight for control, dividing the Horde's attention and resources. The humans escaped the command ship just as the explosions began. Ryu's sabotage of the supply depot and communication relay happened simultaneously with news of their leader's death. The Ravak forces found themselves leaderless, confused, and unable to coordinate their response. Within hours, the unified Horde had broken into competing factions. Some groups retreated to fight over Graktos' territory. Others continued attacking the Nexari, but without coordination or support. A few simply scattered, looking for easier targets elsewhere. The Nexari forces, following human tactical advice, struck quickly at the scattered Ravak groups. Without central leadership or supply lines, the individual factions were much easier to defeat. Observer Unit Gamma compiled detailed reports on the human operations, but the data made no sense according to Nexari military theory. Your success rate exceeds all probabilistic models, it informed Major Lim. How do you achieve such results with minimal resources? We understand our enemies, Lim replied. We don't just fight them. We outthink them. The campaign ended within 2 weeks of the human team's arrival. The Ravak threat was eliminated not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through understanding and exploiting the weaknesses that the aliens couldn't see. As they prepared to return to Earth, Major Lim noticed that Observer Unit Gamma seemed different. The mechanical being's reports had become longer and more detailed, filled with observations about human psychology and tactical thinking. Will you be sharing your analysis with the Council? She asked. Yes, Gamma replied, though I predict they will find the implications disturbing. Major Lim wondered what the artificial intelligence meant by that, but she would not understand until much later. The Nexari had sent Gamma to observe human special forces in action. What it had witnessed was a level of military capability. The victory celebration on Nexus Prime was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to honor the defeat of the Ravak Horde. But the mood was strange, relief mixed with something that looked like fear. Fleet Admiral Kim Minky stood with the other human delegates, watching alien species that had never spoken to each other before, united in their concern about human military capabilities. The successful operation against the Ravak had solved one problem, but created a much larger one. Ambassador Choi Min-seo, now elevated to represent Earth on the Galactic Council itself, tried to ease the tension. "The cooperation between our forces and the Council military was excellent," she announced. "This victory shows what we can accomplish working together." But the aliens were not focused on cooperation. They were trying to understand how 5 humans had accomplished what their combined fleets could not. Observer Unit Gamma's reports had spread through every military command in Council space, and the implications were keeping strategic planners awake at night. Dr. Shin Kyungmin had spent weeks interviewing alien military leaders, trying to understand their perspective. What she learned worried her. "They're not just impressed by our effectiveness," she told Fleet Admiral Kim privately. "They're terrified by our methods." The problem was not what the humans had done, but how they had done it. The aliens understood conquest through superior technology or overwhelming force. They could not comprehend warfare based on psychological manipulation and strategic deception. Colonel Yoon Tae-won, now promoted to train alien forces in human tactics, faced constant questions that revealed the depth of the cultural gap. "How do you teach soldiers to think independently without losing unit cohesion?" asked a Vorthak strategic planner. "How do you predict what humans will do in battle if they make decisions without logical analysis?" wondered a Nexari commander. "How do you maintain honor while using deception and sabotage?" demanded a Kalani war leader. The answers that Yoon provided only increased their confusion. Human military doctrine was based on principles that seemed impossible to the aliens. Individuals making independent decisions while working toward common goals, adapting to situations without losing sight of objectives, using whatever methods were necessary to achieve victory. The Council's solution was to create entirely new military classifications. Traditional rankings of regular forces, elite units, and special operations were meaningless when applied to humans. They needed categories that had never existed in galactic military thinking. High Counselor Zephar announced the new system during a formal session. After extensive analysis of human military capabilities, the Council has established new classification, standards for integration, purposes. The holographic display showed a complex chart that placed human military units in categories, far above anything previously imagined. What humans called regular army was classified as Tier 7, independent operations capable. This was a level that most alien species reserved for their most elite special forces. Human special operations units received a classification that had never been used before. Tier 9 strategic disruption capable. This meant forces that could independently alter the outcome of conflicts through methods that existing military doctrine could not predict or counter. The tier aliens had also created a theoretical Tier 10 classification for military capabilities that they hoped would never exist. It was labeled civilization-level threat and was designed for forces that could challenge entire galactic powers. Fleet Admiral Kim studied the new classifications with growing unease. The aliens had categorized humanity's known military capabilities, but they clearly suspected that more dangerous options existed. "They keep asking about enhanced soldiers and advanced warfare programs," Ambassador Choi reported after meeting with Council security advisors. "They want to know if we have military capabilities beyond what they've observed." The truth was that Earth did have programs that went beyond conventional special forces. Enhanced soldier projects, experimental weapon systems, and theoretical warfare concepts that had never been tested in real conflicts. But the aliens' fear of regular human soldiers suggested that revealing these programs would cause panic. Dr. Shin presented her psychological analysis to the Earth Leadership Council. "The alien species have evolved past their warlike phases through specialization and technology. They can't understand a species that treats warfare as a fundamental skill, rather than a specialized profession. What we consider basic military competence, they view as supernatural ability. Our willingness to adapt, improvise, and take risks contradicts everything they think they know about rational behavior. The most disturbing aspect of her report was the aliens' growing suspicion about human intentions. They're starting to wonder if our peaceful approach to first contact was genuine, or if it was a form of strategic deception. This paranoia was fed by humanity's military successes. The rapid defeat of the Ravak horde had been too easy, too complete. The aliens began to suspect that humans had been holding back their true capabilities during earlier demonstrations. Fleet Admiral Kim faced a difficult decision. Earth could continue trying to reassure the aliens that humanity was peaceful, but their military effectiveness made those assurances seem hollow. Alternatively, they could acknowledge their capabilities and try to build relationships based on respect rather than fear. The choice was made for him when a coded transmission arrived from Earth's strategic command. The message was brief but contained information that changed everything. Project Titan has achieved initial success. Enhanced soldier candidates showing 400% improvement over baseline human capabilities. Request guidance on disclosure protocols. Kim stared at the message for a long time before deleting it. Project Titan was exactly the kind of program that would confirm the aliens' worst fears about human military development. Enhanced soldiers with capabilities, far beyond even Special Forces operatives would place humanity in that theoretical Tier 10 category that the Council hoped would never exist, but keeping such programs secret was becoming increasingly difficult. The aliens were asking more specific questions about human military research, and their intelligence services were much more sophisticated than Earth had initially realized. Ambassador Choi interrupted his thoughts with an urgent communication. Admiral, the Council has requested a private meeting. They want to discuss advanced human military programs. The meeting took place in a secure chamber deep within the Council complex. Only the highest-ranking military leaders from each species attended, along with neutral arbiter Qualan 7, to ensure that the discussion remained diplomatic. Admiral Kim, Counselor Zephar began carefully, we have observed that human military capabilities appear to exceed what would be expected from your technological level and training methods. Warcast Prime was more direct. Your soldiers fight with skills that suggest enhancement beyond natural ability. Do humans possess advanced warrior creation technologies? Collective Mind Epsilon's mechanical voices hummed with calculation. Statistical analysis indicates probability of 94.7% that observed human capabilities result from systematic enhancement rather than natural evolution. Fleet. Admiral Kim found himself facing the question he had hoped to avoid. The aliens knew that humanity was holding back information about their military capabilities. Lying would destroy any chance of building trust, but telling the truth might destroy any chance of peaceful coexistence. He made his decision. The soldiers you have observed represent the baseline capabilities of trained humans. We do have advanced programs, but they have not been deployed in the conflicts you witnessed. The silence that followed was complete and terrifying. Neutral Arbiter Qualan 7 spoke for the first time during the meeting. Admiral, are you informing the Council that humanity possesses military capabilities beyond what we have already observed? Yes, Kim replied simply. The implications hit the alien representatives immediately. If human special forces had seemed impossibly capable, what would enhanced soldiers be like? If regular army troops could outfight elite alien warriors, what could humanity's true elite forces accomplish? Counselor Zephar's forearms moved in patterns of extreme distress. Admiral, we must ask, what is the extent of human military potential? Kim considered his answer carefully. The truth was that humanity didn't know the answer to that question either. Enhanced soldier programs were still experimental, advanced weapons remained theoretical, and the full potential of human military capability had never been tested. I can tell you that humanity has no interest in galactic conquest or domination, he said finally. Our enhanced capabilities exist for defensive purposes in extreme scenarios that we hope will never occur. But even as he spoke, Kim knew that his assurances would not be enough. The aliens had seen what humans could do when they tried to be peaceful and cooperative. The idea of what they might do when they tried to be truly dangerous was keeping entire civilizations awake at night. The meeting ended with an agreement to establish new protocols for human military integration, but Kim could see the fear in the aliens' eyes. They had invited humanity into galactic civilization, only to discover that they had introduced a species whose military potential might exceed everything else.